Motion to come out of closed session.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor? We are now back in open session. Mr. Attorney, anything to report for closed session?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, folks. Thank you for your patience. We're a few minutes behind, but we were about a half hour behind with the first portion of our meeting. So thank you for your patience with us. We're going to go right into the 7 o'clock portion, which is public hearings, zoning map amendment, special use permits, UDO amendment, resolutions. Mr. Brewer, item number 14, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. Good evening. You do have a general use rezoning before you this evening. Jerry Lynn Shackelford, applicant and owner, is requesting approval of a zoning map amendment for a general use rezoning for 2.44 acres of a 4.62 acre tract from the general business to RA Rural Agricultural Zoning District. Excuse me. More specifically, the portion requested for rezoning beginning at the southwestern corner. There's a legal description of which was provided by the applicant because the proposal is to split zone that track. This is the White Stocking Road frontage. This is the portion that's being requested to go to RA. As you'll see, this whole area along 53 is majority is zoned general business. So if you're looking on this map, it would be this portion that would go to RA if the board is so inclined. Subject property is located at 4189 NC Highway 53 East in Burgaw and is referenced on deed book 3355, page 206, which is attachment 1 in your packet, and then also further described in map book 45, page 114, which is attachment 2. Little history, when Pender County first adopted zoning in 1988, the property was initially zoned RA. In 2003, the property was upzoned to the B2 district. After holding a public hearing, the planning board recommended approval of the request along with staff's recommendation of approval. I can answer any questions specific. The applicant is here for the board.
Open the public hearing part of this. Mr. Attorney, do you have any sign-ups?
Only the applicant, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody have any questions for staff or the applicant?
I don't, Mr. Chairman.
No. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion, please.
That's District 2, you said?
I don't know the number, but it would be the Burgaw district. I don't know exactly where that line would go.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Have a motion second. All in favor? Just raise your hand. Thank you, Mr. Brewer. Item number 15. Open that public hearing.
Good evening, Board. Sorry. Before you, we have a zoning map amendment request. This request consists of a general use rezoning for 106 parcels from RP Residential Performance to MH, the Manufactured Housing Community Zoning District. The properties for rezoning are commonly known as the Coastal Plantation by Jensen communities, which are located to the east of U.S. Highway 17, north of Forest Sound Road, south of Hampstead Pines, and in Hampstead. Again, there's 106 parcels in this request, and it's 108 acres. Those PIN numbers can be seen in your first attachment there. The request complies with all criteria set forth in Article 3.38 of the Pender County Unified Development Ordinance. It's consistent with 5 policies in the Comprehensive Land Use Plan and does not conflict with any policies. At the January 7th Planning Board meeting, Planning Board unanimously recommended approval of this general use rezoning from RP to MH, Manufactured Housing Community Zoning District. So what we're looking at here is Jensen's Coastal Plantation was established in 1982. and there are 77 home sites. Property was previously zoned rural agricultural in the B2 business district at the adoption of zoning in '88. As part of the comprehensive rezoning in November of 2003, the property was zoned from RA to R20, and then the portion along Highway 17 was B2. At this point, you can see that they do own parcels that are adjacent to US Highway 17, but they're not part of this rezoning request. The parcels in question here are in the RP district. The Pender County Board of Commissioners approved a special use permit 10388 on August 18, 2003 for the Jensen's property. The SUP allowed for an expansion of the original manufactured home community from 77 to 175 units. Only a portion of this expansion was ever created, and this is still a valid SUP. So here's what's on the ground now, and this is part of the SUP that was approved. Coastal Plantation was developed and platted under the regulations of the Mobile Home and Travel Trailer Park Ordinance in '84, thereby grandfathering the existing structures and parcels in compliance with zoning regulations. Just to define a manufactured housing community, it's designed to provide for a planned community and manufactured homes. This district is intended for the location of manufactured homes on common ownership or the creation of lots of manufactured homes. Such planned developments are intended and provided to be with appropriate roadways and amenities and suitable for landscaping and transition areas to blend the manufactured housing community with existing land uses. As this is a general use rezoning, it'll encompass all permitted by right uses in the manufactured housing district. Criteria to rezone to an MH district requires a minimum of 5 acres. Jensen's Coastal Plantation far exceeds this with 108 acres. All of the lots in Jensen's Coastal Plantation are under common ownership, thereby the properties are in compliance with this requirement. According to the applicant, currently the properties are serviced by Pender County Utilities for water. There is a community wastewater system, and 6 of the homes are on individual septic. Community wastewater or private sewer or any future development will be determined in a master development plan, which will need to be approved by the planning board prior to any development. Jensen's Coastal Plantation access is here on US Highway 17. All roads are currently private. Any improvements would be addressed at the time of the master plan submittal, as this is a general use rezoning. The Register of Deeds, Map Book 39, page 102, indicates that there may be 404 wetlands on the property, as identified on the plat recorded for Section 3 of the Jensen's Coastal Plantation, recorded in 2005. Any of these wetlands would need to be delineated by the Army Corps of Engineers. None of the properties are within a special flood hazard area according to the FEMA-approved firms from 2007. There are no navigable waters requiring any CAMA regulations, and future development would require re-examination of all of these environmental characteristics. So with the planning board recommendation and staff recommending approval, I'll entertain any questions you may have this evening.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Brown.
It's really just,
Yeah.
this is something I didn't realize in 2003, and I guess you were on the board back then.
Couple months before I was on here, actually.
Was it? Okay.
No, I was on August 2003, yes,
Yeah.
excuse me.
There was an SUP
Yep.
issued on this piece of property. Why was an SUP issued for an expansion? Was that something back then we had to have an SUP for, Trey?
My guess is yes, and at the time, you had to have an SUP to do a whole lot of things.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
assuming, Commissioner Brown, that when they were initially within the county, that predated zoning requirements. So I can only assume that when they came back for the expansion is what triggered the special use permit requirements. And really what the applicant is trying to do is just get the entire site under compliance.
What does that do with the SUP, the current SUP? Does it eliminate?
It's still valid.
It would still be valid. As we've spoken with the applicant, we would certainly recommend this board go through the motion in a separate public hearing, probably on the next agenda to remove that as special use permit.
That's what I was wondering, is it even necessary? I mean, if you pass this, is it even necessary to have a
I think
SUP?
for good housekeeping measures, it would be good to formally remove the special use permit.
Okay, that's what I was curious
No,
about.
that's a very good point, Mr. Brown. Anybody else have any questions? Sign-ups other than the applicant?
I'm not sure, Mr. Nichols is here about the applicant, and the two other signups with you, then no. I didn't, I thought that's who they were, but I didn't want to be, my memory's failing like the rest of it.
Part of me wants to make Tim get up here and squirm a little bit. I won't do that to him. He'll pay me back at church or something if I do that to him. But
We'll let him slide this time.
Is he ready for a motion?
does anybody else have any questions for staff and applicant? Make sure we cover this correctly. Hearing none, I'll close public hearing and entertain a motion.
It is in your area.
I can't make the motion since I'm the chair.
And I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Thank you. You're gonna be busy now. Busy girl. Item 16, public hearing a resolution requesting approval of a special use permit, SUP, for the construction and operation of a telecommunication tower located along the northern portion of Penderley Highway, approximately 1,753
You're
feet
gonna need
east
more than one.
of the intersection of New Savannah Road and Penderley Highway. That was a mouthful. Item number 16, SUP.
Mr. Chairman, may I swear?
Need a bit?
Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of you signed up. If you wish to speak, you need to come up and be sworn or affirmed at this point. If you're not going to speak, you don't have to, but if you are going to speak, you need to come up now, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that testimony you give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, so help you God? Thank you all. Thank you, Kyle.
I'd like a motion to excuse Mr. Tate from the remainder of the meeting. He has, this meeting being on Tuesday nights, done several of us a curveball, so can somebody make a motion to excuse Mr. Tate?
I'll make the motion.
Motion second, to excuse Mr. Tate, the remainder of the meeting, all in favor? Thank you.
Good evening, Board. American Towers, applicant on behalf of Larry Paul Bullock, owner, is requesting approval of a special use permit for the construction and operation of a 265-foot telecommunication tower on a tract of land currently being used for farm purposes. The proposal is located along the northern portion of Penderley Highway in Burgaw, approximately 1,753 feet east of the intersection of New Savannah Road and Penderley Highway on a 29.97 acre parcel currently zoned residential performance. The tower, as proposed, is designed to accommodate 5 additional telecommunication carriers. This special use permit request has been evaluated for compliance with standards outlined in section 5312Q. Based on the applicant's submittal, the request is in conformance with UDO requirements. The subject property is classified as suburban growth in the 2010 Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Suburban growth land use classification identifies those areas of Pender County where significant residential growth is expected to occur within the planning horizon. The proposal complies with one policy of the Comprehensive Land Use Plan and does not appear to conflict with any goals or policies. Staff and the applicant are available if you have any questions.
Officially open the public hearing on that one. I don't believe I banged the gavel. Any questions for staff from anyone right now? I know we have some sign-ups, Mr. Thurman, I think it,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe the applicant is represented. I asked the representative to come forward now, and then we'll go down the list of sign-ups.
thank you.
Thank you. My name is David Robinson. I represent American Tower. I'm an attorney in Raleigh with a law firm of Nexon Pruitt. I was before y'all last year. I don't have any plans to return, but here primarily for the purpose of thanking staff. I've enjoyed working with them. We go to great lengths at American Tower to make sure that these projects makes my life easier if they comply outright with your ordinance. This does. I stand before you to say that each tower is a piece of a puzzle. And as we talked about last time, this tower fits in with other towers. And so my point to you today is that a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of investment has been made into determining that this is the best place for this particular tower to provide the coverage that AT&T desires for its subscriber base. Again, think of this like like any other real estate project. AT&T has pre-leased the top floor of this tower, and American Tower's goal would be, of course, to get other carriers to co-locate down the road. I have brought with me Graham with Graham Herring Realty, who would be happy to answer any questions y'all may have about property values, about the surrounding real estate. EJAZ with AT&T is here. I understand there may be some questions about RF and exposure. I'm happy to answer any of those questions. The BOCC family is here as well. I don't know that they want to speak, but certainly they're taxpayers and they have chosen this particular use for their property. And happy to have them with us here today as well. Why are we here? We're here because somewhere in the neighborhood of 28,000 new wireless subscribers in the United States sign up for wireless service every day. This is something that your constituents are using in school. They're using it for homework. They're using it for entertainment. They're using it, heck, in my church. When it's time to open up the Bible, half the people in the church fire up their iPads and swipe their pages instead of turning the pages. It's a function of our modern society. And we have submitted, so there are maps that show you how this coverage lines up with the existing towers. There's statistical data represented here that shows that for safety purposes, for RF purposes, there's something called a maximum permissible exposure level. Counties have been preempted by the state, which has been preempted by the FCC. They set a standard. This tower, not as configured, but as configured times 2 in terms of 15 antennas were used for the projections that you have in front of you. This tower operates at less than 1% of the MPE as set by the FCC. Again, this is by statute in North Carolina, not something that is before you all as something that is as a topic for discussion for this evening. But I wanted to point that out because I think it's important that you have in front of you a letter from AT&T saying, look, if we doubled the number of antennas we were going to put on this thing, we would still be operating at a fraction, meaning less than 1% of the FCC standard for MPE for a site like this. In fact, if you were standing at the base of this tower with a baby monitor, that baby monitor would be a bigger health hazard to you than this tower. And we can prove that to you if you'd like, but again, really not something that a municipal body is to be discussing in connection with a tower application. I would be happy to answer any questions. Certainly as the discussion goes, feel free to call on me at any point in time. Again, we comply with your ordinance. Happy to be providing this service to the citizens of Pender County, and we'd really like for y'all to approve this particular tower design on this particular piece of property tonight.
Anybody have any questions before we start? Thank you, and you're available to,
Yes, sir.
call on you again, I would assume.
Absolutely.
Mr.
Well,
Attorney, who's on the list, please?
I'll skip over, I believe, the applicant, Catherine Bannerman.
I can relate to what you're going through right now.
Oh, my goodness.
Take it for granted.
Well, this is only day one, so I'm not really good at it yet. My name is Catherine Bannerman, and I live on New Savannah Road, 1315 New Savannah Road. I received a notice about this public hearing by basis of being a adjoining landowner. Also somebody that happens to read all of the legal notices in the paper. So I happen to know about it just a few days ahead of that and contacted Mr. Robinson, who was very nice and supplied me some of the information that I needed. I wanted to make some general points, and then as I progress to the more specific issues. When I began this process, was not all that knowledgeable about cell towers, how many we have. My first question was, how many does the county have, and how many in actuality do you need with co-locations and on single sites of towers? And I first wanted to address that issue. Mr. McCarthy here was very nice to put together a map that adhered to four of my requests. One, as I understand it, a map of the current towers in the county didn't exist. He put one together for me, a limited one, since it had not been done for all towers west of I-40. So hopefully I could get some information together before or by tonight's meeting. I do think it's a question with co-location at a lot of towers being, how many do you really need? In other general points, I know, and a lot of people here may not know, a lot of these people, a lot of the people that are here tonight are members of my community, and I don't know how many of them are aware of this, so I'm going to use this as a platform for some public education. Although it was not deemed to be the intent of the 1996 Telecommunication Act, that was pretty much to break up the monopoly of what was judged to be a monopoly in the communications world. But part of that act does bar health effect concerns being a reason that any governing board can refuse to permit or grant a special use permit. I don't think a lot of people understand that. It has been tested, not always successfully for the plaintiff, but it's generally agreed that arguments based on health effect concerns and cell towers is not a reason that you guys can entertain. So for most people that may have planned to speak, possibly, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Most people that have reviewed that act also say that Congress could never have intended for the public to have no voice in what health concerns they may be willing to have inflicted upon them based on where they live, and have the possibility of their most valuable asset affected. I came to learn in this process of asking for information and trying to get enough information to decide where I stood, if I was going to be non-committal and indifferent to it, if I was going to oppose it, or if I was going to support it. And in doing all that, I've learned a lot that I didn't know, and please correct me, Mr. McCarthy, if I'm not correct. But I also think that in addition, I may not have made this point, but I do think and hope that there will be amendments to the 1996 Telecommunications Act that will at least allow y'all to hear and be able to act upon people's health concerns about these. As I understand it from Mr. McCarthy, and I may not have the exact wording, so y'all correct me please if I'm wrong, that currently the only given that will immediately keep a application for a cell tower advancing is that if there are two towers or two applicants in proximity of each other of 1,500 feet. So I think that you've had a couple of permits before you in the recent past where a tower existed within the 1,500 feet, so you could not, the other person had to basically withdraw their application for permitting on that tower. I don't know where that 1,500 feet comes from, and may I ask the question as to where does that come from?
I think we need to make sure that it relates to this permit, Mr. Attorney.
Yeah, I'm not,
Yeah, we're kind of going down a road. We need to make sure we stick to this.
To this actual permit
to this.
and not
We're-
general
we're not
knowledge?
here for
right.
philosophical views
Okay.
on it. We have to really, and I know your heart's into this, so I've kind of sat back.
Well,
and not said
I've been
anything.
trying to learn, and there's
I
so many
understand.
things you don't
I
understand.
Well, it takes a lot to get up here and talk. You're not used to it, and I appreciate that.
Now what I want to address is I was able to get, and don't know if y'all have a copy of it, but I do have a copy of the actual application.
We have that.
Y'all have that in front of you? I understand that there are these 8, I think they are entitled, special use permit findings. And these are 8 things that have to be addressed in order for y'all to be able to act on the application. There are some issues I'd like to take with this particular one. Number 2, the requested use will not impair the integrity or the character, of the surrounding, or adjoining districts, nor adversely affect the safety, health, morals, or welfare of the community or the immediate neighbors of the property. My issue is I live there, and I do believe that it will impair the integrity and the character of that area. There's really nothing but generalities listed in here other than that broad statement. Having lived there all of my life, I can tell you that it will impair the integrity of it. Number 3, number 3, the proposed use shall not constitute a nuisance or a hazard. I'm not here to debate one way or the other about whether living close to a cell phone tower is healthy or not healthy. But as far as being a nuisance, when you walk out of your homes now and you don't have something almost the length of a football field sitting erect right outside of your back door, and this will be something in the vicinity of, from my door, of about 1,200 feet. It is somewhat of a nuisance, not perhaps in the way that you would most commonly think of a nuisance, but even without falling off the fence on one side or the other, 4 cell towers or against them based on health effects, there has been and there is enough information out there, be it valid or be it invalid, that causes people to worry. I've been a real estate broker here for 21 years. In addition to people asking you, how close am I to a really busy highway? How close am I to a swine or a poultry operation? It is something that people ask, and it does have an impact on an area. So I would not necessarily contradict their standing that it's a hazard. I would contradict their position that it will be a nuisance. Number 4, about midway their paragraph, it talks about that furthermore the proposed facility will be visually buffered. That bufferage is talk more about in their paragraph 8. And this I found to be, I don't know, perhaps I don't understand it as well as I would like, but based on what I read, it was actually almost humorous to me. And I'll read to you the portion that is, the proposed tower will be situated on an approximately 30-acre parcel of land and will be well screened with existing vegetation and a landscaping plan to minimize its visibility from neighboring parcels. Now, the reason I got tickled was the first thing I thought of was 265 feet in the air, and we don't have any redwoods and we don't have any sequoias. So I really don't understand how that can be a factual statement. You're not going to minimize the visibility with existing vegetation. Gosh.
Man, we're gonna have to make sure that other folks get to testify too, so I'm gonna ask you to maybe kind of wrap it up a little bit, please.
Okay.
Or they may wanna, yield their time to you or something
I
like that.
know from talking to a lot of them that they signed up and didn't know that it was to speak.
That's fine. That's fine.
2 weeks is not a great deal of time to prepare for a public hearing. I expect that y'all would like to see what's referred to as expert testimony, something in, as far as property values go, with appraisals and that kind of thing. I understand Mr. Herring's here. I'd be interested to hear what he has to say on the subject, but actual appraisals done in this area were not submitted as supporting documents to the claim that it wouldn't have any impact. And as the county has 151 days from the filing of the application, which was filed in December 14th, to act upon this, I would ask for a delay of 30 to 60 days. 60 would be best in order to obtain supporting expert testimony and appraisals as to real estate impacts in that area.
Got a question for you real quick, and
Sure.
and I apologize for not giving the name, but maybe Mr. McCarthy can help you. On the map, can you point out where you live at
Sure.
versus where the
Well, actually, I don't know, can I just go over there? Sure. Actually, I live right here
you live right there? Thank you very much.
and own this piece of property that has a residence on it as well.
Okay. And sir, and based on the grid and the map, the tower is going to be in that green section where,
Right here.
okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Turner?
I would also enjoy if y'all have time for it tonight, based on people on the sign-up sheet not speaking. I would like to hear, how do you come to the conclusion of how tall a tower needs to be? I mean, what makes one need to be 265 feet tall?
Yeah, you need to address the board, not the applicants, ma'am.
Okay. But if there's time left for that, and y'all can recall them and ask them to, lots of times when you have a better understanding of something, it makes it a lot easier to make an informed decision. So part of me is looking at this as a educational process too.
Thank you, ma'am. Who's next on the list?
Cindy Noble,
Ms. Noble? Okay. Who do you have next?
Phil Noble, Roberta Rivenbark, Nathan Rivenbark,
Are they going to speak or?
Chris Pierce,
So are they okay with it?
Angela
Just
Pierce,
sign up, they see a sheet, they don't really know. Speaking of-
Brad, I can't make out the last name. Cagle. Sorry. Those are all the sign-ups, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to ask the board if they have any other questions for staff or the applicant at this time.
Mr. Chairman, we may wish to hear with regards to property values, because there wasn't any
That's why I'm
expressed
asking the
yet.
board if they would have any more
That's
questions.
what I was
for
gonna
that.
ask
That's
you.
what that's what we're getting to.
That's my next question. I want to hear from the realtor.
He was sworn, correct?
Yeah.
I
Okay,
believe
please-
so, yeah.
please, yes.
Ms. Robinson, your witness was testifies to the effect on property values? Certainly.
There were some other questions raised as well.
Well, that's
Does
up
the
to
board share any of those questions, or
Yeah,
would you like me just to move on to Graham Herring?
Let's address this question right now.
Okay.
Please.
If you would, let me go ahead and submit. Do you want a copy of? We have some extra copies as well. Graham Herring has testified at over 1,000 of these, at over 1,000 of these type hearings. He has brought an impact statement. We had requested that he do an analysis in person of this particular neighborhood and the impact that this particular tower, this 265-foot tower, might have on adjacent properties. And so, Graham Herring, if you could come up and talk about your impact statement, please.
My name is Graham Herring, 8052 Gray Oak Drive, Raleigh, North Carolina. You have in front of you, I believe, or currently passing around the documentation of an impact statement, which is an evaluation of these plans for the proposed facility planned on this particular site. American Tower employed me to go out and look at the surrounding area and the specific site and plans to evaluate the potential obtrusiveness or any potential diminution of value or adverse influence that might be created by this tower. And in comparison to the existing towers in Pender County, Burgall area, and others in the immediate vicinity. This tower, if built as planned, is not dissimilar to many other towers that are here in the county currently. I personally have been involved in other tower proceedings here, specifically the one at the East Walker Street here at the end of it, a very similar tower to the one that's planned on this facility. I'm sure you all are familiar with the one across 117 right at the end of Walker Street here. And it is dissimilar, of course, to the one at the end of Main Street that is a guide tower, but is not dissimilar to many other self-supporting towers here in Pender County. To basically get to a conclusion, on the page 4, it reads as, the telecommunications facility built as planned will have no substantial detrimental or injurious effect on property values of surrounding neighborhood or other improved or unimproved properties in the general vicinity. Finally, the nature of this location with the separation from the residential arterials to the north of the proposed site, unimproved areas and mixed uses in this area, including I guess it's a junkyard facility. I don't know if it's conforming or not to the west of the proposed site there, basically northwest.
Would you like to use that?
Sorry. I don't know if it's actually a repair facility or what, but multiple trucks, RVs, vans in various conditions there. Basically things of that nature, rock quarries, poultry producing facilities that are similar to the north, hog parlors, livestock production, things that are common to rural areas that create noise and or odor would be considered detrimental. Towers have not proven to be detrimental to property values. And that's my conclusion.
Any other, anyone have questions for?
What's the closest the tower is to a house? You know?
What's the closest? I believe the closest residential improved property is about 1,200 feet,
Heard that earlier.
approximately 1,200
From
feet,
the tower? Okay.
to the tower center line, proposed center line.
Okay.
Any other, anybody else
Yeah,
have questions?
When you say you've consulted and reviewed with area appraisers, developers, tax authorities, planners, and I see review public records, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking these folks for, but if you deal with area appraisers and developers, you can't put the names of their companies down, the folks that you talk to?
Typically, don't get specific to that, and that's been over time, you know.
What kind of criteria are you basing your?
Basically, sales and resales of improved properties of all types, residential, urban, farm, industrial, medical, in all type areas.
Well, but let me ask you this, if you're looking at property values in that area, how can you determine in that area if it's going to hurt the property values or not hurt the property values if the tower's not there yet?
Well, it's an interpolation based on towers similar to the residential structures that are at the base and within proximity to the tower at Walker Street or other towers throughout the state, actually. It's an interpolation.
You know, this is a bit of a dilemma for me because I know we need cell towers in order to have cell phones. It's a necessary thing to have. But I also know they're an eyesore. In my opinion, they're an eyesore.
That's
Yeah, and that's just my
certainly
opinion.
valid opinion.
So to say that, and the lady did bring up a good point, I'll give her that, and no one's ever come in here and argued the point on some of these things. But, when she talks about, you know, nuisance, what do you call a nuisance? Okay, and I understand you're talking about hog parlors and things of that nature which have an odor to them.
Right.
Or have a lot of noise to
Noise.
them. You're exactly right.
Right.
These towers do not have an odor to them. They don't really have a noise to them. So you can't say they're a nuisance in that respect. But for someone to have the opinion that they're walking out the door and they're looking at this huge tower up in the air where they used to just see daylight and stars at night, and now they've got this to look at, I would differ with you on that opinion that it does not have an impact.
Well, I said substantial, and that's a matter of opinion
Yeah.
as to, the bundle of rights and ownership of real property, you know. We have done tracking studies of sales and resales before and after towers, not just cell towers, radio towers, TV towers, water towers such as you have in the county here, electrical transmission, high transmission towers. They're all types of vertical structures.
Are we 1,200 feet, that's a little less than a quarter of a mile. How tall is the stand of trees around there?
These trees that are immediately to the existing, where it's planned, the rectangular tract to the right has not been cut as recently as the one in the L shape at the top, that property. But it varies from 25 to 30 feet, just general. I haven't measured specific trees.
That's fine.
But the height is sufficient to cover the compound that's planned, and that's what they're saying. Compound and equipment certainly is not going to cover a 265-foot vertical structure, you
And
know.
then, how tall is the tower again? Make sure I understand that again. I read it, but let's make sure we understand.
Yes, sir.
The height of the tower again is
265.
265, so about a quarter of a mile away. How much are you really seeing of it? That's a question that if you're gonna talk about some of these conditions, you know, and here again, it's opinion with a lot of it.
Certainly.
I guess
So,
what I was
It's
asking,
not like you're walking out seeing it right across the street, but what's small potatoes to one is large to another. As far as-
and let me ask you this, When you say you consulted and reviewed with these folks, tax authorities, public records, when you're consult, what kind of questions do you ask someone with tax authorities?
Well, specifically taxing authorities and the tax attorneys in various counties, and it's been some time since I've spoken with the tax authorities here. But at the time that we did speak with them, we asked them, have they ever devalued a property because of
You're
a...
saying in here that you talked with tax authorities in Burgaw and Pender County. So I'm asking you, what kind of questions did you ask the people in Pender County and Burgaw to this particular tower?
Nothing specific to this particular tower.
Or to
To
that
towers in general in the county itself.
area? Okay,
If they had ever devalued a property.
I got you.
Because of the construction of a cell tower or a water tower or a,
And you answered my question.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good question. Yeah, anyone else? Commissioner, have any more questions for this gentleman?
No.
Questions for anyone else?
Yeah, I think, where's the attorney at?
Right.
I think you were prepared to address one of the concerns she had, something that she brought up just before we started with the real estate appraiser.
Yes. Let me talk to two issues I think were relevant to this. One, as Graham alluded to, just to describe the compound itself. So American Towers will lease a 100 by 100 piece of property, and then they'll put a compound there, and that'll be a 60 by 80 foot compound. And because American Tower is not a they're not AT&T, they're not T-Mobile, they want other folks to be there. So they're going to have a fenced area that's large enough to have an AT&T box, a Verizon box, and whatnot. And so your ordinance requires a wooden fence, which is different and a little more costly. The compound itself is surrounded by that fence with appropriate signage and barbed wire on top to make sure it's not an attractive nuisance to children and whatnot. And then your ordinance requires there to be landscaping around that as well. I'm not sure the landscaping achieves much because, again, we've got natural landscaping there that's going to act as a buffer as well. But so when we're talking about a buffer, your ordinance requires that buffer so people don't see the equipment. They don't see the shelters. They don't see the generator. The one thing that I would say that is the second point is, I live under high-power transmission lines. And maybe that detracts from the view, but you know what? When we have an ice storm in Raleigh, I kind of like where I live. We get our power before anybody else. Your county has now achieved over 70% of your 911 calls go through wireless service. That's higher than Wake County, but you've now hit the 70% barrier. It's, if I had a home business, I'd want to be pretty close to a cell phone tower. It's, I know it doesn't appeal to everybody, but it's certainly, when we're talking about something that, it is an asset to some people. And increasingly, it's an asset to most people. And so other than Graham and talking about the compound, I'm unaware of any other items that were raised, but I'd certainly answer any questions you may have. Again, I did draft.
Specific to this application.
Correct, specific to this application. I am the author of these 8 points, and so would be happy to talk about, discuss, or defend any of them.
Anyone else have any questions?
I appreciate you addressing that.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing none, close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Make a motion, accept it.
We have a motion to approve. I cannot make a motion or second a motion as chairman, just FYI.
Could I say something before I
Yes, sir.
Folks, we just approved one in my own neighborhood a few months ago, and did I like the idea of looking out my door and seeing a cell tower? And this one I think is much taller than yours, or the one that's being proposed here. No, I didn't like the idea of it, but I also know so many people call me and complain about the fact that we don't have communication, internet service, and everything else in the county. We're doing everything we can to try to get internet service to everyone in the county. And that's not an easy thing to do with the county the size that we have and with so much rural space. And at the same time, I have a lot of people calling me and concerned about cell phones. They want cell phone coverage. So it's kind of it's one of those dilemmas that I live with when I'm going to walk out the door and see this tower, but at the same time, I know I'm going to have a cell phone. So which is the most important to me? We're living in that day and age of technology now, and not everything is going to. It would be nice if we didn't have to have the cell towers. I'll be the first one to say that. If we just did not have to have them and could still have that cell phone and communication device, but I'm afraid that it comes with a cost. So with that being said, I'm going to second the motion to approve this item.
Have a motion properly seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is going to be item 17, public hearing resolution requesting approval of a special use permit. Excuse me, sorry, I got behind myself. The special use permit for construction operation telecommunications tower located along both sides. I'm gonna wait a second just to make sure. Located along the north side of NC Highway 53, approximately 1.25 miles southwest of NC 53, NC 50 intersection, Maple Hill.
Mr. Chairman, we again need to swear people in. Mr. McCarthy remains under oath, but if anyone else.
We'll officially a public hearing.
And the only sign-ups we have would also remain under oath, but I don't, in case anyone else is here for this item. Seeing no one.
Anybody have any questions for staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, we do need to put it into evidence.
Fair
I
enough.
can see the applicant's
Fair
attorney.
enough,
Yeah,
fair
that's-
enough. Go ahead.
American Towers, on behalf of William P. Marshburn, is requesting approval of a special use permit for the construction and operation of a 300-foot telecommunication tower, approximately 1.25 miles southwest of NC Highway 53 and NC 50.
Mr. McCarthy, by putting evidence, I meant to say you could just say the staff report has been submitted and it's true and correct to the best of your knowledge.
So I dot all my I's, cross all my T's.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Ms. Robinson, do you have anything you wish to add to, other than to submit the evidence?
I have nothing to supplement what we've already submitted, and enjoy working with the staff on this project.
Thanks, sir.
I'll say again, any questions for the applicant or staff on this one? Hearing none, to close the public hearing, entertain a motion. Item 17.
Motion.
Have a motion. Motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Item number 18, public hearing and resolution requesting approval of amendment to the Pender County Unified Development Ordinance, creating an Appendix B titled Conditional Rezoning Districts, as well as administrative updates to references throughout the document associated with conditional zoning districts. Mr. Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Essentially, what this text amendment is a housekeeping item. As you'll recall, a couple of months ago, you did approve a conditional rezoning. So what this Appendix E does is document and codifies those conditions that are placed on that property so that staff, the public, property owners can have easy, direct access to those conditions that are placed on a property. The references throughout the ordinance would just simply be referencing the appendix.
Can I ask you what that means?
What?
What you just said?
That means that
When you say quick access or whatever.
that's correct. So if somebody was looking at a piece of property and there was a conditional rezoning on that property, they could then go to this appendix and see what conditions were placed on that tract as they would be binding to the property.
Okay, it allowed us to be a little more creative when we rezoned the property rather than just open up the door for everyone.
Yeah, and what this does is just documents the conditions that this board has placed. So the case that you heard was regarding a rezoning for a mine. And there were specific conditions placed with that rezoning that typically a general use rezoning does not legally allow for.
Gotcha.
improving as we go, I think.
Oh, absolutely. This is just documenting the cases that we do approve, so. And this will also be on the website as.
Well, we said it was gonna be changing all the time.
Yes, sir. Mr. Thurman, do we have any sign-ups? I don't.
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Is to close public hearing, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second it. Motion and a second. All in favor?
I will say this.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate what you folks are doing in the planning department, especially with the UDO, because, and I brought this up, I think, in the December meeting, where you folks were mentioned in the, one of the, the Wilmington, the magazine there in Wilmington. What's the name of it?
The Biz Journal,
Yeah,
Wilmington Biz
yeah.
Journal.
Someone brought it to my attention, and I got a copy of it, read the article. It was a great article, and it gave kudos to you guys, and actually, use these folks as a model, you know, so I appreciate it. Doing a
Absolutely.
good job with it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because Commissioner Ward was with me for a good part of the presentation. We saw the Duke Energy readiness presentation, and it talked about Vendor Commerce Park, and there's some of it that's in New Hanover and so forth, and a plus was well, it was talking about Pender County, but for that site, the way our SUP is maybe versus somebody else's. But when we went to the countywide zoning in 2003, and then we went to this UDO, we never had a perfect document, but everybody had to have faith that when we came across something, we would make adjustments and learn from it and move on, and that's all we've been doing for a while now.
And we still, you know, a lot of things aren't relevant enough to bring to you guys, but we do document, so when we do a comprehensive update, we're going to be ready to rock and roll with that. Mr. Chairman, if I may, just wanted to let the board know, Mrs. Frank did have her child, a healthy baby boy, who was born in the ice storm, so.
She was more than,
How
she,
much did said child weigh?
Said child was 10 pounds, 0 ounces, so.
wow.
Well, tell her congratulations.
We
Please
will,
do.
we will.
And on that note, I did see, before I could acknowledge her, Monique was here, and bless her heart, couldn't sit down. But our tourism director was here, and she's having a hard time getting around, but she got out of here before I could tell her welcome back to work. I know she's
Yeah.
not had the best of times for that. So, is there any other item we need to address before we adjourn?
We've already adjourned.
That's right, we got that. So we got officially adjourned now, banging again.